Very warm welcome to this conversation. I have my guest, Susanne Kohout, with me, and I'll talk in a minute about Susanne. I also have with me my fabulous team, which is supporting and working hard behind the scenes to make sure that we bring these conversations and these dialogues to you. So, without further ado, let me talk a little bit about Susanne, and I'll tell a short story. Susanna and I met about 21 years back for the first time. I was at that time working for Novartis in region Asia, based in Singapore. I was approached or asked by my company that would you be open to take a role in Europe as head of HR? And you should fly in and meet Susanne Kohout, who was the region president at that time. And I can, by the way, see Alan Tijal. Hi, Alan. Good to see you because we were partners in crime working together at the same time with Susanna in Europe. So, sorry for digressing. So, my story is that I flew into London. I was to meet Susanna in London. There was a snow blizzard, and mine was probably one of those flights which managed to land, and Susanna didn't could not land in London. And I was nervous and anxious as hell going to meet someone who's a region president, had never worked in Europe, was very excited about this. And then I had prepared hard for my interview or meeting with Susanna, which never happened because of the snow. So I go to this office in London. I'm told Susanna can't make it. So you have to now fly to Geneva and you have to meet in her office. So my anxiety and nervousness went few notches up. And then I took a flight, I land in Geneva, and I drive straight to the office, which was about a 20 minutes drive from the airport. And I am like, I don't know what I'm getting into. Pretty cold. It was a January morning. And I go and knock at Susanna's door. And Susanna opens the door with this wide, warm smile and puts her hand on my back and walks me into her office and makes me sit and starts chatting about the flights and how everything went. And then she goes and gets a coffee for me. And I can tell you those 10 minutes without getting into a conversation about the work or the role or who I was, just connecting at a human level with Susanna gave me so much reassurance and confidence that I don't even remember what was the conversation on work till the time she told me that when are you flying in? When are you joining us here in this role? And after that, I had a chance to, of course, closely observe and work with Susanna for almost 3 years and learn how you can really balance accountability with compassion. Someone who made choices and decisions which I felt were extremely hard with so much ease and finesse, at the same time protecting the dignity of humans who were involved with those decisions. Every conversation with Susanna, every travel with Susanna, I have multiple stories, by the way. We traveled together a lot across across Europe. Uh, I have so many stories of Susanna that I can kind of fill this hour myself just talking about that, which I wouldn't like to do. I will have my questions, which will enable us to unfold who Susanna is and what she stands for. But I think I'd like to sum up that if I've seen one leader who can balance a good business judgment and acumen, making choices and decisions, enabling teams to be at their best, and finally being compassionate towards people she cared for, I can't find a better example than Susanna Kohout. So, Susanna, we are so thankful that you are our guest today. As I said, I continue to get inspired almost every day, and I'm sure there are a lot of people on this call who will be inspired by listening to your story. So, with that, I'm going to ask you to talk about who you are and what you stand for, and then we get into a conversation. One request to the participants, this is a dialogue. So, the idea is that you will have your questions, which we will bring up. Some of you shared your questions already with me. I will bring those up. But in the meantime, as you hear Susanna's story, use the dialogue box to put up your questions so that we can make it a very engaging conversation. Thank you very much. And Susanna, over to you.
So big thank you, Atul, and your words touch me. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm delighted to share my milestone of my development, or where I had crucial moments and where something has changed. So let me start with the family, because I think that is the roots I have, and that is also still today, which gives me the confidence to be to make decisions, etc. So we were 4 kids at home. I was the youngest and only daughter. My brothers always say I was the most spoiled one. This is not true. I was only a smart observer. The 3 others grew up, and I learned out of their mistakes. What I think the difference was that my mother consciously stayed at home. So she did not work with 4 kids, etc. And she was in charge of taking care and manage the family. And I need to admit, she really did. And she encouraged us to observe, explore, experiment, fail, and stand up again. We could bring as many friends for lunch, or also when my mother went every second, third day with us out in the nature. And she gave us the space to experiment. And I need to admit, due to my parents, but mainly my mother, I have a very strong sense of belonging, but also strong value system. And also, I think we got taught from the very early on to take accountability and also take care holistically. What I mean with this one, also looking at what is you're doing for the environment, etc., etc. So it was that you holistically, you were in charge. It was not, you could not blame somebody else, you were in charge. So that is the family I come from, and I'm very proud, and also the family still today, to my brothers. I have very good contact, and we do a lot together because we shared a happy childhood, I would say. Then came as next my studies, business administration, nothing special, nothing extraordinary. I think what the difference was that I was student assistant at a renowned professor. And that for the first time gave access to me to international congresses, top managers, think tanks, international companies, etc. And in doing so, I realized that I could add value even when I was only a student. So I was not stupid, I could discuss, etc. And that gave me also a kind of inner strength. And I met my best friend in life, Gabi, which I'm still in contact today. So she was my student, and I need to admit, at business administration, also at a very old university in Germany, we were one of the few women. And I had one professor always said, oh, these are the flowers of business administration. Today you could not do so anymore because it would be discriminated. The first start I had with Procter & Gamble. And that was really international environment. It was mix of culture, backgrounds. It was very vibrant, and I would also say 100% performance driven. So the young people all wanted to prove themselves. Initially, it was a shock for me because I was also in the studies somehow protected, but here you had to show yourself every day at its best. First, I had to improve my English, so I was sent on an emergency English course. And then soon I started as assistant brand manager on Pampers. And there it was really observing, exploring, learning, fail, and succeed. It was truly a learning culture. And also during your experiences you made, you learned more and more marketing. One thing I really, and maybe later on also too much, I enjoyed very much was the constructive debates, where it was really a lot of arguing for the best solution. And there I think Procter & Gamble culture is very specific in this one. But in doing so, these debates Also, you have a very strong ownership or co-ownership of your baby. In this case, it was Pampers. So if you would not do it, if you would not do initiatives, nobody would do it. So that was also given as an asset to you, that this was your ownership and you had to develop it. And I met one boss who trusted me very much, and I also trusted him very much. And there I got a project which was European launch of a sanitary napkin, which was already launched in the US and in Asia, but not in Europe. And in getting in charge of this one, I learned a lot in politics, but also I learned a lot to survive in a male-dominated environment. Launching a female product with British management was not easy. And I got a lot of red noses. I learned my way to be heard, but also balancing facts and emotions. Now, I prepared I was a product manager of this European launch, but I also, because I did it for 2 to 3 years, it was so exciting, I wanted also to launch it. And therefore, I went to the first test market in Europe, to Belgium, to launch this product, and it was quite successfully. So, and later on, I moved also with Procter & Gamble to Scandinavia. So what I got at P&G was really that I was a subject matter expert in marketing, and it was my school in marketing. And I would say I was 100% performance driven. So I was an expert somehow. After 9 years, I decided to do a sabbatical year. So first of all, I launched in Belgium always. And I met an old student colleague, and we had a bet that who earns more after 5 years will invite the other one into the South Pacific. We both paid, so it was not the bet. And by chance, we ended up for 2 to 3 days on an island close to Tonga, and it was a luxury resort, which was run by Germans. And they asked us, can you imagine running this for 10 months for us? Because every 5 years we go off Tonga of the resort, and could you imagine to do this for 10 months? So first, I had my career at P&G. It was a quite courageous move. My parents were not too happy, but I need to admit Scandinavia is in summer the most beautiful place, but also not so in winter. So we can talk also later on about sabbatical here. So it was running a luxury resort on an island, 1 hour sailing trip away from mainland. And the staff had to live on the island because due to the corals, you could not sail there overnight. They got every week 2 days off. They were very young. Most of them were not married. And they had to work for the school fees for their siblings. So the challenge was that they would return after their days off. But also I realized that I had to keep them happy and fulfilled with their work they're doing, and to bond them that we all do something great. It was for me a lesson for life. It was a simple environment. I'd like to give you some examples what I did, but that realized, or that made the change later on how I was as a manager. So for example, the waiters. We had 5 young men, and they always did the preparation for the dinner. We did together folding napkins. And it was like a kind of ritual. So each day at 5, we created true artworks. And if I was not on time or didn't give enough time for it, they were really disappointed. So for me, it was a kind of showing them the respect. Or with a cook. I had to have a cook for a luxury resort. So what I did with him, and it was value time, we did 30 minutes. He had a dedicated time where we were hiking around the island. So as said, it helped me to really understand human beings, but also what makes human beings tick, that they get fulfilling in what they are doing. So I think I learned there that you can have a business, the ownership of the business, but there is another piece, the team, which you need to have fulfilling in their duties. And really what it helped to me in a protected environment, owned environment, I could explore what this means to bring it together, the performance piece of it, but then on the other hand, the fulfilling piece on this one. And I could explore this. And the next assignment was general manager in Germany. I was 37. I had a team of 8, 9 men, all older than 50 years. So for me, it was also, what can the added value can I bring to this party? After 2 months, the company, Novartis, merged and did a major restructuring. I had to close down a factory, and more than 50% of employees were reduced. So for me, the challenge, I was very new in the role. And after 2 months, I had to restructure massively. So what, for me, the first thing was really to get to know each team member and build strong bonds. And we had ups and downs, and also together with the headquarter or the international headquarter, managing the restructuring was not easy. I was used to constructive debates, so I brought this also in, and also building up confidence. But I need to admit, as a general manager, which I was not yet used before, you are alone on the top. You are alone in your defenses in headquarter. Which battles to fight and which ones are worth it. However, I think you can always take it out if you have trust in the team and the confidence. So for example, what I realized also later on in the job, the morning you enter in the building, the receptionist is observing you. And that, I think, whatever ups and downs you go through, is you need to be confident. You need to have a smile, and you need to be positive. And that the people value, and this is talked around the building. But you need also to recover your resilience batteries. And that is really what I enjoyed in my free time, hobbies, as well as friends. And I did, during one of the major restructurings, my pilot license. I wanted to do something totally different, to get my brain and my mind totally off and do something I had no clue about. And by chance, I met also my husband. He was my instructor, my pilot instructor. Also, a key moment I had during this time as a general manager in Germany, I was invited to a meeting with Mandela. That were young professionals in Germany, and they were invited. And I was really first very much impressed how modest, wise, but also looking ahead. And that he was really impressive. Although he was in jail, he always looked to the future and was positive that the future will be better. And that impressed me very much. And I have one proverb from him, which I also like very much, but also which I think is so right as manager. And the proverb says, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So for me, it is really, as a manager, very often it's better that you step back and support the others to shine, because it will anyway reflect on you. So that is one of the, I think, of my own mission and guidelines I like to follow. Afterwards, and that is where I met Atul and Alain and a lot of other people, and we can a lot of experience to share. In regional and global roles, I learned bits and pieces from peers, good and not so good managers, And what was always that I experimented with behaviors I saw, but also values I saw. Experiment, tried, adapted, withdraw them also, failed, and succeeded also. And you need, or what was important for me, that I had to true to myself, and that was also what you need to try out. Is it you? And if you didn't try out, you missed a chance. Now, my last assignment was most probably, I would say, the most interesting one. It was running Greece. And it was also the most difficult one. We had external challenges. It was named as the biggest scandal in Greek history. We had permanent first page press coverage. And I was also alerted that I should be very careful what I do in my private life. So it was all about politicians. And I didn't know the politicians, so I had to be very careful also what I was doing in my free time. The purpose I was sent there was really to calm down the organization and to run the business as usual, so that also we would clearly demonstrate that there was no reason behind the accusation. The team, a very motivated one, but I had to reinstall confidence, and I had to take time to gain the trust of the people. And really, I did so in putting individual development agendas in tune with the business needs and the personal agenda, and to make them proud again. Greece was always very known for having the highest growth rates, and every launch they launched were a success. Now, I had to gain a mutual understanding that this time was over, and this time was over with the whole financial crisis. So the headquarters was not willing to give any more the investments into Greece, and that I achieved a mutual understanding and openness through heavy debates. So we debated what is the right place for Greece and where do they sit on the table, on the European table. So it was not anymore the growth perspective, but we changed from growth to innovation. And that made us and the people very proud that they could share and test market new initiatives. And we were also very, very innovative. So, for example, at the Corona crisis, Greece was the best one in digital customer engagement worldwide. So they were very tuned to new industries, but also to try something out. So we really did a lot in digitalization and a lot in new business models. And that was known at the headquarters, and therefore there was a lot of trust into Greece. So for me, clearly, what I want to say is performance and compassion go alongside. It's not one or the other. And you can do both, because you need always, behind business are people, and behind people are families. So therefore, you need to have a holistic view on the whole environment. And people are also worth the investment in time as well as in efforts. So I did some courageous moves. I promoted people to marketing, which maybe came out of finance. But it was also, then you had to make sure that the buddy network or my own time was there for the people as backup. Also, I think you need to adjust and fine tune your inner compass, your inner beliefs, depending on the experiences you make. And explore courageous moves, business model changes, discover new grounds, and make tough choices. And I think you can do tough choices when you have a mutual understanding and when you have secured the buy-in of your team. The buy-in of your team is for me very important, and it takes time, but it's worth the effort. And sometimes, yes, heavy debates as well, or long debates. So in each of my roles, I had fulfilling. It was sometimes tough, and maybe it was not first-hand fulfilling, but it was also letting the team and the individuals to shine and keeping the moment for personal growth and the momentum behind it. So, Atul, that is maybe what I like to share, and we can for sure talk about more concrete experience if you wish.
Well, thank you so much, Susanna. Like a lot of it I knew, but not all of it. So for me also, I think there are a lot of revelations in what you just shared. And I think I can kind of connect the dots in my own mind that what makes you who you are. Few things stand out for me, and I'm very anxious actually to ask those questions to you. But I also want to request audience that, you heard Susanna and her story. Feel free to put up your questions in the dialogue box as we get into now the conversation or the dialogue part of this session. So, Susanna, a couple of things which really stood out for me as I was very intently listening to your story. I think one, the courage to deal with your fears, deal with your anxiety, and yet do the right thing at every stage of your life. Whether it was taking that new assignment in PNG, where you were working with these all male teams on a female hygiene product and going ahead and doing what you believed is the right thing to do, or with your friend taking a sabbatical when most people, as I grew up in my own career, are so focused on how do I grow, how do I make an impact, taking a sidestep for a bigger, broader kind of push in your life, what you can learn going into an unknown place and then finding out what would inspire those waiters to show up every morning and get excited about folding napkins. I mean, that takes a very different level of courage. uh, Dealing with a merger where things are not very clear and you're making choices and decisions which are impacting families and lives, taking care of yourself in the middle of all that building that level of self-awareness. I mean, I had a chance to work with very senior leaders in my entire career, not met a lot of leaders who have that level of self-awareness that as they walk into the office, right from the receptionist, people are looking at them and forming opinions about how they show up every day. So it takes courage to really at very early age to step outside your comfort zone and be open to experiment and learn. And you said fail and learn from your failures. So how did you shape that mindset? How did you nurture that mindset that it's okay to fail? It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to step outside your comfort zone because you will become eventually a better person. So your thoughts on that?
I think so. First of all, if people say they were always successful, I don't believe them. I think out of the experience where you fail, you learn most. And as I said, the European launch, I had some moments, also experience,
Yes.
where I didn't know what to do. But then on the other hand, also, there was nobody else to solve it. So sometimes it's good that you are forced into something and you will find solutions.
Yes.
And I think it is also what I like to share, it is a team. I was always looking, and Atul, therefore we choose you to be part of the European team. It's also you cannot solve the world anymore alone by yourself. You need complementary skills in the team. And ideally, the more diverse they are, the better. However, with a lot of diversity, you will also have a lot of time constraints, because with a lot of diversity, you will have a lot of debates.
Yes.
But engaging it. And as said, I think in business, a mistake can always happen.
Yeah.
That was, I think, a lot out of the P&G mindset to test market everything. Now you had I would say 20 years ago, you could still test market. Today, you need to go directly in trial and error, because before you have test market something for a year or whatever, the world moved on. So
Yes.
today you need directly, and a lot of initiatives are directly done. And therefore, I think you even see right now much more failures compared to in the past. But you need to, and I think what is a good thing, where you need to be honest to yourself and where you need to reflect. And with hindsight, everything is a success because you learned something out of it. Therefore, it is also a success. But I think you need to reflect what is good and what maybe you could do better.
Yes. Amazing. Amazing, Susanna. And I think what really resonates with me, and I saw it firsthand, and I learned from you, is trusting your team and trusting your people. So, as you rightly said, you can't do everything, and you need to build that confidence and trust in your people, that they feel that they know that what they are doing is the right thing to do, and supporting them and standing behind them. So it's a great, great response. I have now some great questions coming up in the dialogue box. So, Shalini, I'm asking you to unmute and bring up your question, please, for Susanna.
Sure. Thanks, Atul. Hi, Susanna. Hi. So my question was, you mentioned about how you've had instances of shutting down factories, which involves uh, shutting down of jobs. So this is a little bit more into the intricacy of that, of how do you manage non-performance. I'm not really referring to a attitude-wise non-performance. I'm guessing that's more easier to deal with. But typically when we have these situations, when compassion comes ahead, you want to shield them, you want to protect them from the management. And some instances, you even upward delegate the difficult conversations to your manager so that, I mean, it needs to be done. But how do you kind of manage the process yourself while, like you mentioned, protecting the dignity and bringing compassion to it? But at the same time, the business is there for a purpose, for revenue. And how do you just maintain that justice of sorts between the two?
So closing a factory was a headquarter decision. So, and I had never done this before. I was 37, had no experience with this one. But it was a decision, and even worse, we had still to run 2 years the factory. So the decision was done, but 2 years we still had to run it. And it had to be fully run because it could not be transferred as easily. So it was for me that you have work council, so you were listening to the people, but then you had to share as well that what you could not change. So that the decision was made, I could not change this decision, and the factory had to be closed. So that, I think, sometimes as a manager, you need also to share what you can influence and what you cannot influence. And then that was very important for me, that the social plan was a fair one. And for those who stayed all the 2 years long, they had a higher share of social packages compared to those who directly decided to leave. So you need to be fair. But I think you need always to be very honest in your communication and forward. Now, if it comes to performance, and Atul, we have a lot you work with, on one hand with HR, human resources, but also it was for me always important you get a neutral view, because sometimes you as a manager, you maybe have also one-sided, or it's your, I would say, not sweet spot, but it is your blind spot. Therefore, you need to get another opinion, a more neutral opinion. But also, I think you can stay fair. Sometimes there is not the right fit. So, and I think sometimes for young people, it's better to share with them early on that maybe the company is not the right company for you, and you see them somewhere else much more flourishing. or if it's truly underperformance, where you also are very clear in your communication. But still, you can be fair to the people and respect them, and especially work with the dignity of the people. But I think what is important is the communication, that you are straightforward and you are making also very clear in underperformance, is there a way out or not? Does it need to be changed or not? What I think you need to get straightforward communication helps a lot. Maybe Atul can join as well.
Fabulous. I think you hit the nail on the head, Susanne, and that authenticity, which, by the way, I always saw with you. You know, when you have those authentic conversations with people, the trust is imminent. Even if those situations are tough on them, they understand where you're coming from. And the other piece is, very many times, Susanna, some leaders, as I saw across my career, find it easier to pass on the accountability or ownership to somebody else. That, this is a decision coming from somewhere. I'm just the messenger, versus taking ownership of why the choice is being made without compromising the dignity or the sensitivity which is involved when you're dealing with human beings. And I think that's what I learned from you when I worked with you, just observing you, Susanna, both in our first and the second stint we worked together. And I at least tried to practice in my own career. Let me move on to the next question. And I think it is Amog. Amog, you want to come off mute and bring up your question? Okay, he may have dropped.
Actually, Atul, it was my father who asked the question.
Okay, Ashwin, I didn't know that he was on the call. Ashwin, please go ahead, bring your question up, and great to see you on the call.
Thanks, Atul. Thank you, Susanna. This is the problem when father and son together are in the same call. Susanna, this is sort of linking to my question, which I posted, and links to the previous discussion and the answer what you gave. Especially for some companies who have gone through this great place for to work certification, somehow, be it good or bad, this has gone a different connotation that it is always about people pleasing. And precisely that is where I always am a rebel in the company to say GPTW we have done at the cost of performance. So this is where I was also looking for certain hints and help from you on how do I really still go celebrate with the people, show that it is a great place to work, and then at the same time hold my people accountable that yes, performance cannot be compromised at any cost.
I think you said, when you said it right, pleasing the people is never working. You need to be honest, and you need also to address, I think, those people, the hot potatoes in the room, or those things which are not talked about, but you know that the people think about this. And that as a manager, you need also to be very honest and say, I cannot do this and this. You give a reason maybe why you cannot do it, or sometimes you can also say, because I cannot do it because we are in an international network. But pleasing, I think the people feel it directly, that you are not authentic, that you are not honest to them. So I still also have one sales meeting where we could not announce, we had to restructure, but we could not announce it at the meeting. And the people felt directly that this was not a good sales meeting, because they felt that there were an underlying thing going on. So for me, it is sometimes then also better to delay a meeting if you cannot give answers or if you cannot make decisions, if this is already not known, or if the people are afraid of something or frightened that they know something is coming, but you cannot announce it. But pleasing is not the right wing. And I think celebration should also be honest. If you don't think that this is celebratable, don't do it, because the people held you accountable for this one. And that is the difficulty with authentic leadership as well, that they observe you. If you give your value system out, it's also, you need then to follow this through. They really look with magnifying glasses as soon as you, I would say, as soon as you, I don't know the right word, now managing mediocrity or managing underperformance and let it go. They will directly observe this, and that will see also it's not you. So I think for me, it's also, there is performance, but you need to address performance also. But still, you can do it in a very compassionate way. Huh? So that you don't need to compromise it in any way.
Well said, Susanne.
Yep.
Thanks, Ashwin, for the question, and sorry for the mix-up, by the way.
No issues at all.
I will now go to my friend Alain. Alain Tijal, please bring up your question for Susanne.
Hi, Susanne. Very, very nice to hear you. And as I said, the warmth and clarity is a distinct aspect of you, which I really enjoy. I was also impressed by the way when you talked, when you have a complex situation of you in front of you, you understand which are the details that matter, which are the battles that matter. And I think this is very enjoyable to be reminded of that in this discussion. So Atul, thank you for organizing this. My question, leading from the front versus empowering people is probably one of the aspects where I think you excel, but also where I sometimes struggle, because as a manager in an organization, you typically need to have an added value that you can demonstrate to your management. You are not just there as a span breaker, you have distinct added value, but at the same time, and that's maybe a bit my style, you like to be behind the scene and just empower the people and allow them to grow, etc. How do you manage both in a large organization?
So, Alain, so first of all, we were a great team at this time, and we have a lot of experience to share. I want only the Russian one. Alain will know. I don't know if Atul was part of this one. For me,
Yes.
I really need to admit, and that is maybe in my last years, it was really leading from the back. And it was really let the people, because if you are young and if it was their development agenda, let them do it. But management will anyway, that you formed a team, you will get enough excitement out of it. But it was for me more showing that the whole team is a unity. Sometimes also I had one boss who was not happy with this one because we were so united. Whomever he asked, he got more or less the same answer. And he didn't like this. And he said, I cannot get through the people. And that is for me uniting it, and that is for me also, it's not only that the team per se, but you need to see also personal growth. So each individual need to also get the feeling that they still grow, or that make them growing. And there I spend a lot of time, especially now in Greece, to understand and discover within people, where do they want to go? Some people could not move out of Greece, and Novartis was very clear, you cannot become a GM if you don't move out of your country. So we had to find out what is the best next thing for them, but also where can they still learn? So I made a lot of, and that I need to admit, maybe I did not enough in my career, is where I went into another field. So where you got, and I say, from being a business unit manager to market access, something totally new, but it will make you a better general manager if you have once also negotiated with the government and see the politics behind this one. So as said, I take a value that it is better to lead from the back than leading at the front. That doesn't mean in very crisis situation that maybe you step in because you want also to protect the team. And you are the one, which I think you should be then, when you have critical discussions with management or whatever. So I saw a lot. The Corona crisis, where you got a lot of global initiatives, and the countries, you had so much things to do. You could not send your people in Coursera and running through courses that was guidance you got. Locally, the people had to work day and night to get the Corona crisis managed. So that is where you need to address it, and then you need to stand up. That is then you don't shine, but you are critical. That, I think, is more your role. I hope it answered, Alain.
It did. Thank you.
Well said, Susanne. I'm, by the way, reminded of the situation in Vilnius, Lithuania. I don't know whether, Alain, you were there with us, where this example of when you decide to get in front and make a decision, Susanne, when everybody needs that decision. So when the team is not in a position to make a call, and it's a big call, and your choice at that time to make that call. I wouldn't, for the sake of time, go into the details of that incident, but that's very deeply etched in my mind. When do you balance? When do you decide that this is the time to get in front versus when is the time to enable and support others to make a decision? And that's a balance which, as a leader, you did so beautifully and taught a lot of us who are from the Susanne School of Management how to deal with it, those situations, how to show up in those situations when those arise. So I'm going to ask Yulia. Yulia, you can come off mute and bring up your question. Great to see you on the dialogue, by the way. Please bring up your question.
Hello. First of all, Susanne, thank you very much for the very inspiring talk. I see that you have guided a lot of people as a very good manager and also improved their lives. And I wanted to ask you, when you work like a corporate job, like you started, how do you feel? How do you start? How do you embark on the path of leadership instead of just being one of the cogs in the system who does the mundane tasks? Thank you very much.
I think I did it instinctively. I was not happy to be just the one to feed the system. I wanted to do more. And that, I think, is also, I wanted to add value. I wanted to really make it better, and better in the totality. So I was never happy just to be doing it as all the others. Now also you sometimes need, and I maybe initially in my career, I took too many battles. Whenever I thought that I was right, I stand up. And that later on also that I had to learn as well, and because of the constructive debates at P&G as well, where this was fostered even, to manage it. Where do you go in? And that is really, where does it matter most? So if you really think there is a battle to take or an initiative to take, just try it out. And I said in Greece, I made them very proud that they were on the innovation agenda. So we could not play on growth anymore, but we put them on the innovation. And it made them proud again. But also we had a reason. So you cannot do something, and that is also, you need always the buy-in of the team, and also that they contribute. So what I think I also learned, if you give a theme out, it need to be real. It need to be operational. It need to be that you succeed in this theme. So not just let's for 1 year have this theme and nobody cares about it. So it need to be very meaningful. But I think you don't survive also in the international if you just behave. I think you will not survive in the long run. But I need to admit, and I had with Atul a discussion last week, I think also the ego trips will not survive. Because teams will not support them. if you are only egoists or only thinking about yourself. And the team, as I said, the world is too complex. You cannot solve it anymore alone.
Perfect. Great. Thanks,
Thank
Yulia.
you.
And thanks, Susanna. So I am conscious of the time, so I have a couple of questions from my list, Susanna, which I realize that I will not get a chance to ask you. So I'm going to bring up the first one, which is those of the participants and those who will be listening to this dialogue later on who are still forming their own opinions about their career. They are in the growth stage. What would be your advice to them as you've gone through your own life journey and you've made some choices? One or two pieces of advice to those who are still framing their own direction in their career.
So for me, definitely it was that to prioritize much more. As said, which battles you take, which etc. Think it through, and you say, is it worth it? The other advice also I would give: don't look only up. I need to get the next promotion level. Look more, where can I learn most? And sometimes a side move, because I'd say digitalization, you maybe need this much more in 5 years from now. Then only going up, but also do lateral moves. So that is, I would say, very much. And then do international roles. If you cannot do it, there is also in your country enough learning initiatives. But do the learning and not per se the next promotion.
Well said. I think so well. Simply and very well said, Susanna. My last question, there are so many things the world knows about you. What is one talent which the world has still to discover about Susanna?
I'm a very bad painter, but I like to be a painter.
Okay.
I managed this in school. I did always very colorful stuff, but I cannot really paint. And that is, I really like to spend time on.
Fabulous. Susanna, I know this is kind of almost end of the conversation, but I can't thank you enough for being with us today and inspiring with your story of your life. I think we are a big believer, by the way, in LEH, that you can live a life full of purpose and meaning and still be very successful and actually be more successful. And we want to bring in more examples, more stories like yours, which will give the world a hope that business leadership is not only about navigation and, as you said, looking forward to your next promotion, but it's about enjoying what you do, making an impact on the lives of others. It's a privilege which enables you to touch lives around you and give them a permission, in your words or in Mandela's words, to shine at their best. So thank you so much. And I can't thank you enough. And obviously, I'll continue to get inspired and be in touch with you. And so thankful to have you as a friend, guide, and mentor. So thanks a lot. And to our wonderful audience, thanks so much for joining. I mean, you guys give us the courage to keep going and bring in leaders like Susanna or humans like Susanna who have the power to influence and inspire so many of us. So thanks very much. Yes, Sophia, you can bring up a slide, which is our next dialogue, and then I'll hand it over to Susanna to close it. So we will have our next dialogue in Feb with another very inspirational leader, A. Sahawatcharin. He's the Chief People Officer of Gulf Energy. Again, another great human being, another great story coming up in Feb. So you can take the slide off. And Susanna, over to you for closing this session.
So I really enjoyed it today. And I wish you all the success you can have, and always have in mind, business needs compassion. Vice versa, it's not one or the other. So big thank you to all for listening to me, and I wish you all the success you can have.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Atul.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And thanks so much for joining us and encouraging us to keep going. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you.